The project that I'm working on right now that I'm especially excited about is developing an economic theory framework that allows us to really think about innovation for social progress. So this is a topic area that's been explored in other ways, and economics does have a lot of theory and empirical evidence from data on how to kind of drive innovation in general. But we can think about innovation for social progress as having a few really unique features to it that start to change what that looks like. And so one of those key features is that beyond just having these positive impacts on society, innovation in social progress, or say in renewable energy, has these other benefits related to improving the environment or the environmental performance of the electricity sector. Innovation in social progress has these other, impacts on education and health and the way that we think about poverty and inequality. And particularly in the energy sector, the energy production and consumption produces emissions that therefore then hurt, our health, various other outcomes such as education and learning and whether people can show up to work. And so these are other kind of costs associated with, say, the dirty electricity, and innovation in clean tech would have the additional benefit of reducing those emissions beyond what we would typically think of for just any innovation, which could help grow development and economic growth. And so in that work, we are developing basically the theory behind it that then allows us to start testing the interaction between these two concepts, what we would call market failures, associated with what does it take to drive innovation. So when we think about how companies, without, say, internalizing or paying for those emissions that are associated with the energy production, when those are not internalized, when they don't have to pay for that, we would call that a market failure. And so an economist would say, well, the one key policy to fix that would be to implement a carbon tax. And there are various other types of regulations that are often used as well. But when that's also interacting with some of another market failure associated with innovation, which is a company not being able to fully capture the value or benefit of their innovations because there are what we would call knowledge spillovers. So other firms can then build upon that knowledge, which can have both positive and negative effects, but it then dampens the incentive for one company to invest in innovation. So in this work, we're developing the framework for thinking about how those two market failures interact, and then empirically testing what that interaction looks like in the context of R&D, research and development tax credits, along with carbon taxes. So seeing what the individual effects of those two are on innovation in energy, transportation, and the manufacturing sector, and then importantly, how they interact, and specifically for an R&D technology neutral tax credit. These would be tax credits that are going not just to renewable energy technology developers, but also those that are investing in all of these other types of innovations. So we might think that even if a carbon tax induces some type of innovation in clean tech, you might wonder, well, what happens when an R&D tax credit that goes to everybody starts to also enhance the innovation incentives for dirty firms or those that are producing emissions? So what we're doing is gathering data on all electricity, transportation, and manufacturing firms in the United Kingdom specifically to essentially test what is the impact of these interactions on, say, their patents in green technology versus dirty energy technology. This project that's looking at and building a theoretical framework and testing these interactions is very early stage work. But what we are finding so far in the theory is that surprisingly, this R&D tax credit that is technology neutral can dampen the potential positive incentives of a carbon tax to drive clean energy innovation. And so we are finding that in the theory in terms of how these two policies or how these two market failures are interacting. but we are still working on gathering the data for that project to see what that might look like empirically.